up, everybody? Welcome back to TCG University's FFTCG Study Hall. I am your host, Travis TNT Tangeman, and I am joined by my two wonderful cohorts.
What is up, homies? Zeth's back at it again.
Hey, man. It's Byron. Oh, and Noah.
Hey,
thanks, Byron.
And our wonderful producer, Noah, because James and Tyler had to be sleepy boys.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in the producer chair. I'm still here to talk and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
And yes, they do sleep together.
So,
Yes, they do.
little bit of housekeeping before we actually get into the podcast. I want you all to go check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, and we're also available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and multiple other platforms. Go rate us 5 stars, please, and share with friends. And
Yeah, we're at like 940, aren't we?
I think so. We're getting up there. We're getting close. We're getting really close to that play button.
I think we're...
That would be super hype.
Oh, dude, if we could hang it up, that would be lit.
Oh, that would be so sick. That would be so sick.
I thought it was like 920.
Yeah. And now let's get into some of our Patreon
We're
junior
around
and
920.
higher sponsors. We have ID, Andrew Dang, Anthony Albano, Bryce Rathsack, Clay Cardwell, Jacob Arshan Mashur, Jay Rogers, Jesse Cervini, Jesse Morrison, Jesse Nix, Justin Farce, Kat Maria, Kevin Broberg, Kieran Vision, Kyle Krossick, Lucinda Letica, Orlando Valdez Santos, Paul Casagrande, Ransom MacArthur, Samantha Stevens, the baddest bitch around, Timothy M. Friedlieb, Tamer's Evolution TCG, Tyler Zane Pease,
And Sean
O'Brien.
and Sean O'Brien. Oh,
How
did I
could you
miss?
skip it?
Did I miss? Oh,
You did.
my bad.
You
Sorry,
missed your
Sean.
you missed your trigger.
Sorry, Sean. We
You
love
missed your
you.
trigger. All right, so tonight we're going to be leading off a discussion, much like our normal discussions that we do. But in fact, this is more of a discussion about our discussions, a meta discussion, if you will, but not about the FFTCG meta itself, but a meta as a global-wide player base, right? So I brought this topic up because I have really been developing as a player. And part of that, when it comes to really learning to update your decks, find out where you are as a player, like what your play style is, what the meta is like, da-da-da-da-da, you're going to interact with a lot of people. And when it comes to interacting with all sorts of different players, they're going to have different viewpoints on things. Like, talking with someone from EU is going to have a different perspective on a card than someone from Japan. Or someone that I talk to from Japan is going to have a different play style than someone that plays in Australia. And the list goes on and on and on. And when it comes to that, the thing I really want to bring to the table to you guys is that when it comes to like your information gathering and like your decisions on like deck building and stuff like that, do you take in consideration like international like thought processes and like opinions and decisions when it comes to like card evaluation, or is that something that you kind of like think's a little bit too far nebulous from outside of what you normally would build?
So I'm going to start on this one because I actually have a reference not specifically to Final Fantasy TCG, but to Weiss Wars, because in Weiss, the way North America and honestly most regions aside from Japan, the way they play is like light years away from the way Japan plays. And so me personally, I try to take their meta not with like a grain of salt, but I look at it and I see, oh, this looks good, this does not look good in my own meta. And then like I translate it basically. Like we put it into Google Translate and then we translate it over and we figure out, hey, this is what I need to run, this is what the optimal list is going to be for this deck. And I formulate like a thesis, I guess you would say.
All right.
So that's how I see it, and that's honestly the way I feel with like any card game where there's like regional differences in play style is I'll look at the things that I think have merit and I'll try to see the entire like spectrum, but there will be some things that kind of get shoved aside from that like regional perspective.
So I agree with that too, for sure. I do like to kind of like take different ideas from different regions and just kind of like put it all, like mash it up into my own idea, like kind of like what Travis was saying. But like you also gotta take into account like in other card games, it doesn't really affect Final Fantasy in this way, but other card games, there are different regions that are ahead of other regions in regards to sets and like what.
Because of releases.
Yeah, and then also like even ban lists too, right? Because like for white shirts, like Travis was saying, Japan has a different ban list than what we have here because they also have more
Interesting.
They
I actually didn't know
They
that.
actually have a ban
Yeah,
list
they have a
in,
ban
in
list.
Japanese. We do not
Yeah.
in English.
Oh, so I'm free to play whatever I want in white shorts.
sets. Yeah, but, like,
basically.
As long as it's within.
Within
Yeah.
the rules of the game
Yep.
itself.
and like Japan has all these abundance of sets compared to what the U.S. has or whatever other region has except Japan.
I mean, I don't mean to, keep pointing at Japan as an example, but Digimon's also a great one. We have up to what equivalates to set 3 in English here in the U.S. and everywhere else besides Japan. Japan's on like set 5 to 6 almost.
Right, because that's where it originated. Because isn't that where Bandai started it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's where
mean,
it
it's
started
kind
for
of the
sure.
same thing with like Duel Masters. Like Duel Masters died here, but there's like
It's still
40
so
there's, like,
popular in
45
Japan.
Plus, it's literally their
It is
highest selling card
so
game.
deep.
And it's 45 plus sets deep too. And it's
Holy
like
shit.
it's like what? This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's why it's I honestly like look to Japan to look for ideas because they like Final Fantasy is not that way right now, right?
Yeah.
But like other card games, you look to Japan to kind of see what they have created with these extra sets because they're eventually going to come out in the States, right?
Yeah.
So like you always look to them to see what ideas
Yeah.
they have and then kind of take it into your own.
Because the example that I have seen come up, and I use it as a really good reference point because it's positioned really well in the meta right now, is Samurais, right? From Japan players, and there's a good chunk of them that agree on this. Even one of them, Kaka, who is like the major advocate for Samurais over in Japan, he says windmill slam 10s in turn 1. You mulligan for him, you open up with him, like you can't go wrong. Turn 1 10s in, back up. That is probably like the strongest opener that you'll have in Samurais behind Magisa and then a Magisa enabler. So like you can go Magisa Palom or you go turn 1 Tenzin.
Yeah.
Both of those are obnoxiously strong because with Magisa you reach Alphanod and then you can go find Tenzin or you go find another backup. Like and having 2 forwards on board and a backup turn 1 is obnoxious. And the fact that the rest of your deck can now chug from that point because you have that good opener, or even the fact that if you throw Tenzin out and he drew you a card on top of playing him, and he just continues the train on from there because at that point, they got to deal with him. It's a 9K beater, and he'll just keep just doing this and still drawing you cards. And if I've learned anything from Barrett, if you're drawing 3 cards a turn to your opponent's 2 cards consistently, you're going to get ahead.
Yeah.
And whereas for like EU and like some other parts of like English play, they say play Tenzin off of 2 backups because that way it's 1 less card they have to get rid of. And that way it gets into a more like mid-rangey approach with Tenzin.
Is it 60p?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And that way you actually kind of like get something set up should Tenzin, air quotes, fail you.
Yeah.
Myself particularly, Tenzin doesn't fail me. I just barf him out, and then I'm just like, okay, I make internet dial-up noises until I need to actually consider what it is I need to do.
Do you think
Jokingly speaking.
Do you think the reason why it's good to slam Tenzin turn 1 is because we're in a best of 1?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think in a best of 3 meta, you're a lot more inclined to be a little more conservative
Yep.
with
Not
your,
if you
your
win the
resources.
first game.
Well, yeah, not if you win the first game, but like,
Yeah, you just all out right there.
like there is.
Yeah, like I'm gonna be honest, in a best of 3 format and you win game 1, game 2 is like the most fun you'll ever
Well,
play.
especially if it's a 2-deck format, because what will happen then is I'm just going to switch to my herky-dur meme aggro deck and see if I can't cheese you
Yeah.
on game 2.
Yep, that's true.
But yeah, like it like I like using Tenzin as like a case study, right? Because if I get him out turn 1, I've effectively seen 10 cards on turn 1, turn 2.
Yeah.
I've been through a little over 35% of my deck just by playing Tenzin.
Which is strong, yeah.
Like, whereas if I've held off like a couple of turns, I've seen 5 cards, which I've slightly reduced the amount that I've seen, but I've also spent less up front.
Yeah.
Because I've spent 2 cards for my 2 backups, and then I'd spend another 2 cards for Tenzin. So that's like 8 cards for me to get 3. That's fine. Whereas the initial upfront of 3 to get Tenzin, and then Tenzin draws me 2 cards after that, he's already +2.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that balance of, do I put $10,000 in the bank and then I come back a year later and I get $15,000, or do I slowly put in $1,000 like every year until I get to $15,000?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the philosophy there. Man, I'm the type that's like, I'm going to throw the money in there, and if the bank goes bankrupt, then that's my own fault.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's also like a way that I look at it too is like, I know we're talking about this off camera, but like for me personally, I like a card that makes you go even, right? Or at least like
It replaces
itself, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned that that's kind of like not necessarily like the North American play style, kind of like
Yeah, but
mentality.
it's more of an EU thing.
Yeah.
Whereas for like NA, and it gets joked about a lot, if it doesn't have a big number and it's not some kind of like big chungus attacker blocker that has a big splashy effect, NA generally doesn't play it. It's like so like Sophie, incredibly popular in North America.
Yeah.
Like she sees play over in Japan also, but it isn't like the level of intense excitement that I've seen in NA.
Yeah.
So, I guess that brings up the question. So, obviously, going from an NA perspective, because I'm sheltered as hell, why is it not as heavy in Japan? Because the stats on that card just seem ridiculous.
Well,
to not just build a deck with it.
Because the way Japan sees it is that Kuchulain blanks it, and then it's a 4K. And then any small burn effect smears it off the board. In fact, Japan also thinks that Samurai's just, like, it's actually challenged by Sophie. But Samurai's also at the same time, it's like, cool, 2 5K sweeps, eliminate it. Like, I don't need any targeted removal because Samurai's is still the de facto mid-range deck.
I can see how Samurai's gets there, but to my knowledge, not a lot of people here are really diving far with water. And Kuchulain is a card that I don't see too many people playing. Or
they need to, because the format that we're getting into right now, if you Kuchulain Tenzin, he sucks.
Yeah.
He's a 9K.
Yeah.
And then at any point during that, if you straight break him or you actually get power loss on him or find a way to kind of smear him off the board, they're not grabbing Cyan back.
My God. If they slam Tenzin on turn 1, you go to your turn, you pitch a card for Kuchulain, blanket, draw another card, and then remove it off the board. Or like end of their turn.
Oh yeah, it's
you
sunk.
blanket,
It's sunk costs.
You're actually just like doomed.
Yeah, that's why when I play my Sophie list, I'm gonna laugh if I see a turn 1 Tenzin, because Kuchulain's gonna come down followed by Famfrit, and I'm gonna feel pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting because I was just watching deck list for Turbo Neo Xeth, and like they play I think 2 or 3 Kuchulains in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny is that's for the mirror match. That's what they're considering there.
Yeah.
And no, I think Kuchulain is like, people sleep on it as a card because, again, when you look at it, it's like, all right, if I wipe away the text on it, it doesn't really handle the power deal that much, right? It does with Sophie. Sophie becomes a 4K that does absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And then she herky-durs, or even better, is you target Ursula with it. What are you going to do? You going to go ahead and try to make her a 9K. She'll become a 5K again, and she's going to sit on her hands, and she's going to enjoy it. And then you Ifrit it away, and you don't feel so bad anymore.
Yeah. So like, the way I see it, at least my own personal like, kind of regional play style, I guess, is it's more similar to like Japanese Magic than like anything FF related. I love my 2-for-1 cards. I love a card that can like either sit on the board and it will like kill 2 of your dudes before it actually dies, or I'll force you to use multiple cards from your hand in order to kill it.
So like Gilgamesh.
Yeah. Or it'll come down and will immediately get me a 2-for-1. Like I'll immediately be up in advantage because I played this one card.
So you're of the school that you like 9-cost Bahamut.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah, where 10K's 2 guys and they're removed from the game.
Yep.
Okay. Or like stuff like Fina and cards like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like another good example would be like the 3 CP Squall when you're at damage 5.
Like how he 8K's a guy.
Yeah. And like you just remove a bunch of things from the board and you just get ahead on board state. Another good example would be the 5-drop Fire Lightning card from the new set that says you can choose one of 3 modes.
Emperor Aldor.
Yep,
He is so cool.
Yeah. So like one of the modes is deal 7k to any forward, right? 8k to an active, and then
Break a 3-drop or less.
break a 3-drop or less. And you get to choose one of those 3 if you're at damage 3 or higher.
No, you choose one, and if you're at damage 5, choose 2.
Okay, yeah. If you're at damage 5,
The
you
dude
choose
is
2.
bonkers.
Yeah, so like once you're at damage 5, that card immediately just comes down and 2 for 1's your opponent, and now you have this big dumb idiot that's a 9k and just holding down the fort. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
I killed 2 of your dudes. Slow down.
And I think that's the other thing that makes Tenzin so effective too, right? Is that when you throw him out, even if you're playing an aggro deck, how are you going to get around a 9k?
Yeah.
Like,
he's so big.
yeah, he has no right being a 9k.
He should definitely be an 8k
And-
with what
and-
he does.
And
but-
normally I don't care about Brave all that much, but when Brave's on a big Chungus forward, suddenly it's a problem.
yeah, and it's like that also removes like a lot of the ways to deal with it, because there are a lot of things that just say, hey, snipe this Dole forward. He's never gonna be Dole unless you Dole him.
Although I will say the weaknesses to Tenzin that I've discovered through play with him is freezing him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's still drawing you cards, but when he gets frozen, he's not doing that damage. He's not pulling his weight. He's only drawing you cards.
Yeah, he's just being a big dummy.
Hey,
Yeah.
I lost that game, but I thought it was the smartest move when I opened with that snow in my hand to go, man, Vaughn plus something. And then we hit Hope, and I was like, we're in there.
Oh no! What sucks is that when you ripped snow off of that, like, I'll be honest, I did tilt a little bit on the inside. I'm like, we're fine, just build back row. And then I throw Cyan out, I'm not like,
Well, I was like, if he hits the Cyan, he hits Cyan, but this will be funny as shit. And
oh, it was awful.
I was like,
but,
hey, I skipped a turn.
But yeah, like when it comes to like card evaluation stuff like that, like NA is impressed by big splashy stuff, right? Like if I play this card, I want to do stuff. I want, like, that's why people are so big on Vayne. That's why they're so big. Like NA really loves its boss monsters, like straight up. Like if it's a big dude with lots of power and like he's got this really nasty effect, as long as I have infinite resources and I can keep him protected all the time, he's such an awesome, like, this is such an awesome thing.
Yeah, but I feel like the issue is, like, boss monsters are cool, but if you build an entire deck around one, like, boss monster, it just kind of crumbles. Like,
And that's why NA gets laughed
Waff's
at.
boss monster is Rain, and once Rain's gone, Waff crumbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well-
you want to have multiple outs in your deck. Like my linchpin, quote unquote, is Hope, but I still have ways of, you know, keeping a board down if I need to with Squall or Snow or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I closed out a game when what's your name again? Travis was at 2 life with 5 forwards on board because I just Althea Eduardo. Like,
Yeah.
No. Oh, the other trick that people found was Renoa Hope, the new Renoa, when she attacks dual characters that your opponent controls.
Yeah.
So every turn you attack with her, you freeze their board.
the only issue that I've seen so far with Hope is they have to be active for you to dull them. So you could skip a turn.
Yeah, so you can't loop it unless you
Yeah.
activate your
Can't
opponent's.
loop it unless they activate their stuff. But like honestly, if they do, they get a turn to try and do something, and by that point you've built up and you're fine.
Hey, no, you want a meme? Are you ready for this?
Playing Eduardo
Like-
on my opponent's turn.
No. Tama's a garbage card. We don't talk about it. So, all right. So Rubicante from Opus 2, the one that activates all your opponent's forwards.
Oh
Could you imagine?
swing and then just be like dog again? It's frozen.
It all froze.
It's awful, but it's
3-drop?
there. What's that?
Is he a 3-drop?
He's a 4-drop. He's a 4-drop
Can't
9K,
team out
sir.
with Vaughn or Vayne. Fuck Vaughn.
Oh, I mean, well, because, like, again, it comes down to, like, interpretation of, like, the card, right? Because I could set Tenzin down in front of all of us, and because we're all NA players, we're going to have similar beats on how we see the card, right? But if, like, Byron was from, like, Australia, and you were from EU, and I'm from NA, there's going to be some level of different views as to how good Tenzin is, and how I would play Tenzin. And I guess that brings it around to, like, the core meat of it. If I disagree with you on it, where does it that go from there? You already answered it kind of partially with, like, I take the parts that I like. and then I format it to what I think's appropriate. And Byron, you said your approach was what again?
I just kind of like echoed what Travis said. Really,
Oh, okay.
it was essentially about the same.
Alrighty. Neat.
I think you just so there's Travis's way, bad because it's Travis.
Awful.
It's not, but
Makes sense. I'm switching.
or you
I'm switching.
you take it all and you put it all into effect and try it out and see what you prefer. If it doesn't fit your style, twist it for your style. If that doesn't work, throw it out and do something else. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too is that like a card can be analyzed and evaluated as good, and then I go play it and it's
just
terrible.
awful.
yeah,
Oh yeah, no, I try to get on like the Storm train, and I love Storm. I love kind of like that
Popping off
that
moment.
style.
Yeah.
I love because it's so styling.
Yeah.
when it works.
Yep.
It's so cool because you're
There's
like,
It's like
keyword,
you're
though,
playing.
is
It's
when
like
it
you're playing
works.
Devil May Cry in card games.
yeah, because like you go to the Kryl and you Ashra to activate all your backups,
Yep.
and then you Ashra again and activate all your backups, and you snap a card back to your hand with Althea, and you do it again.
Yeah.
And then you lock and you pop lock back to your hand. It's like you're playing Tony Hawk and you fill up that special bar and you do the flying Superman
Yeah.
off of the half pipe, and and then you perfect land it into a manual. You feel so good. And then there's some days where you accidentally miss the half pipe and you bite it.
Yeah.
So interesting. Like Storm, I feel like was pretty popular here in NA. Like the tournaments.
It was picked up from EU, yeah.
Was it from
Yeah.
EU?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it started in Japan. Japan had a list, and then it went over to
Japan
EU.
loves Storm.
Yeah, no,
Historically, they have
yeah,
loved Storm in every game.
like Erica is still like very on the deck because like being able to Shantoto 5 times turns out it's still really good. The struggle that Storm has right now is that Sophie really pressures it.
Yeah.
Like it is a nightmare matchup for Storm
You
when
literally have to like hard mulligan for Shantoto and hope that they like overcommit to their board.
yeah, because your Alexander can't touch Sophie.
Yep.
And
It's too small.
yeah, because then you
Small.
and then you have to start teching sliffs and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and that lowers your quality card count when you have to face big things like Tenzin, because it comes down to am I going to lose to Tenzin or am I going to lose to Sophie, and you have to really make that decision like playing Storm, and that's what's kind of knocked it down a few rungs is like the existence of like Earthwater as a whole, which on the record, Sophie's not the problem, Sarah Mobius is the problem. There is no forward in the game currently that statically gives 4K power like Sarah Mobius does to Sophie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of 2K boosts, sure. And in some situations, you might get a 3K. But Sarah Mobius,
just for existing.
she breathes the same air as Sophie, and she becomes an 8K. And that 8K fights your Kryl, and then you die on the inside.
Yeah. See, that's like another thing that I like about like Nickel too is like Nickel just gives 3K to your Sophie just for existing as well because he's a water forward, and then he gives 1K to all of your multi elements, which means like he's making your Sarah Mobius a 6K too, which I think when it comes to party attacks, having a like an 11 or a 12K party is a lot better than having like a 10K party.
Right. The other cool thing also that there's a list that I saw, and this is an EU list. They actually have 3 copies of the 2-drop wool because he essentially gives Sophie 4K because he 2Ks from his static, and then he 2Ks from the fact that he exists as an Earth forward. And every time, and he's also a 7K for 2, right? So the rate's insane. Yeah. And in the crazy case that they do kill your Sophie and wool whacks you, oh cool, she goes back to my hand, and then I replay her.
That's pretty good.
And you can also do funny stuff, like if he's like your only lightning card and you're not playing any of the water cards, you can play Beastmaster and guarantee that you get wool.
Yeah.
Or if you want to go the route where like Sophie's your only water card, because I'm actually thinking about doing like a monk list with Beastmaster to guarantee that I get Sophie.
Yeah.
And not play Sildra, not play any of the extra water like searchers. Beastmaster's my searcher. And Mott's my other searcher. And then it's just mono earth monks with just like with the water being Sophie, but I'm not gonna literally like pay for her. Either Fenrir's gonna bring her out or Ursula's gonna bring her out.
Or Yang.
Or Yang, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Yang can play her too. Wow, I'm dumb.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's a
That's
monk.
true.
But yeah, so those are my thoughts, and you guys already mentioned about like where differences of opinion can help impact like deck performance and like deciding what you're going to do with your decks.
I think it's always nice to have a difference of opinion. That way you're not stuck in an echo chamber.
Yeah, that is true.
The power of the vacuum.
Yep.
And I do want to say, like,
It can fuck you up.
even within your own region, you can still have differences, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, like, we're not just trying
it's
to
the
say...
four of us.
Yeah, we're not trying to say that Japan only thinks this way. We're not trying to say EU only thinks this way.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to say NA only thinks this way.
No, exactly.
That's just kind of like the way that, like, the general kind of like consensus of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we did pretty good on this one.
Moving next one.
Yep, moving
Yeah.
next one.
Next one.
On to the next
Expectations,
one.
because I think this is one that I started off. So it's pretty simple. Expectations. What do you guys expect to happen?
I like that. Deck-spectations.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like
What do you
that.
guys expect to happen with decks in Opus 3 or in Opus 13? What are
3.
you,
Going back in time.
yeah. What are you looking to play, and or what do you think is going to start taking over?
I'm
What
gonna
do you
start here
think,
really
gentlemen?
quick.
And
I
these are
have no
specifically
idea.
decks. You can pinpoint cards that matter, but I want to hear deck archetypes more. So
I have no idea because I honestly haven't really kept up with Opus 13 as much. So I'm just kind of like...
I'm like Professor X over here,
Yeah,
man.
so
I'm
I'm
recruiting the
I'm going to
mutants.
defer to these guys for that.
So I think we're gonna see a lot of Sophie. I think
She's incredibly popular.
that's just gonna be a given, especially considering we're NA and we see big number, and it draws cards and it does damage.
It itches that part of our brain that
Yeah.
we really like.
Yep.
Like, honestly, I think it's Sophie as the card, but I think the main draw of Sophie isn't that she draws a card, isn't that she's a big thing, it's that she just deals your opponent a point of damage.
Yeah, that's the NA trigger.
Do you know how funny it is? Like Travis has done it to me, and I'm just like, shit. When you just leave your opponent at 6 at the end of the turn, you're like, oh yeah, you have a Sophie on board. Fuck.
I wish to watch you suffer.
Yeah, like that. You're like, why didn't you finish me? Oh, I did.
Oh my
Shinderu.
Yeah.
Nani?
just dies. Yeah.
No.
Outside of that, I expect to kind of see the same things we've like been seeing. I think Samurai is gonna be still the de facto mid-range deck. I think Storm's still gonna be like playable to good. I think you're still gonna see people like occasionally playing Neo X Death Turbo decks.
To Chica win.
To try and Chica win. Me personally, I hope that there's a really good, not vanilla control deck in this format. Like, I don't fucking want to see Mono Fire control deck. Ahaha, me played Amaterasu 7 times. That's so
It's
cool.
always
But
gonna
it
be
is.
there.
But
It's always going to be there.
and that's fine. But that's not,
It's an excellent card.
That's not-
What is the problem?
that's not the control deck that I want to play. It's just
You don't like counterspells?
No, I love Amaterasu, but I don't like the way Mono Fire plays Amaterasu. The way Mono Fire plays Amaterasu, it's not protecting some threat. It's to keep your opponent from doing things.
That's what counterspells do, dog.
And that's fine. When I play Amaterasu, I'm using it because I'm trying to protect one of my threats. I'm not using it like reactively. I'm using it proactively.
So he doesn't want his Sophie to die.
Well, no, I'm not playing Amaterasu and Sophie, but like, let's say I'm like, I have this like, let's say I have like a Braska's out or something, and I'm playing like 3-color, what's that deck? Fuck, the on attack, the Marsh Ritz deck. Let's say I'm playing Marsh Ritz.
Okay.
I play Braska's.
Okay.
They play this thing that says, hey, on play, I'm going to kill your Braska. I'm using my Amaterasu to protect my Braskas. I'm not using it to stop them from, like, making other plays. As to, like, where Mono Fire is just, like, they're trying to delay your, like, getting online so they can be online faster than you are. And then if you do get online, now they're using the card, like, proactively to, like, stop you from messing with their stuff once you're online. And
it's stopping you from snowballing.
Yeah. And like the kind of control deck that I enjoy playing can deal with threats efficiently even after my opponent has already started snowballing a game. That's the kind of control game I like playing. Like, but the thing I see about Mono Fire and stuff like that is like if your opponent snowballs a game too hard, there's no coming back from that as Mono Fire. I think that's like being on the other side of that deck so many times. It's like they don't have like an insane board sweep to like deal with everything they want to deal with. Like they have a Frida, but that's not going to deal with all of your opponent's threats at the same time.
I shall introduce you to my new Lord and Savior, Philia.
And like
Amaterasu.
I mean, if you have it, you have it.
that-
But
That's what a
is
lot
a
of it
thing.
comes down to.
And like
you will
that's-
deal with my big chungus 10k after I
Yeah.
swept your board.
yeah, and like that's fine, but even still, I don't know. Mono Fire
Hey.
is just too vanilla.
I think so. I mean, this is just a me thing. A deck I'm looking forward to playing because I'm still working out kinks is definitely going to be Ice Wind Water Hope. You play Ice Wind because obviously that's what Hope's like elements are. The water is to splash in anything like Cagnazio to minus things, the Ultimecia or Strago when I decide to fit that in somehow. More so for Celestia, because if you can get Charlotte and Celestia down, then with Hope your opponent kind of just doesn't have much they can do, because they always have to target Charlotte, and if Charlotte lives, you're dull freezing stuff, because that's their only target choice. Obviously, Ice's version of Amaterasu currently would be Sid, and
Oh, I said Randall.
yeah, sorry Travis, but
Yeah.
Sid definitely just tells your deck to shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Like
I hate
we
that
were
card.
playing games before Zeth got here. I wish he had seen them, and slapping Sid down actually just shuts off his deck completely. Because he has no
Which
way
is
to
why you
just-
play Summon Interaction, like I've been advocating for you guys to do on the onset of Opus 13, because that's going to
Summon
be the
Interaction is
key
the way to
piece
go.
on getting ahead.
so I have an issue with that card not because of like exactly what it does, but because of like what it forces you to do. And like I don't like silver bullets that say you have to play other silver bullets to deal with the original silver bullet.
Well-
I think that's awful game
Yeah.
design.
There's also based on the fact that if he actually becomes popular,
Yeah.
right? Because if you look through on like top lists and stuff like that, he's not very popular.
Yeah, which like I hope and pray that it stays that way. Like
Not for me.
The internal part of me is just like,
No,
please don't let
I'm
this
sorry.
card
I
become
think
popular.
I think as a player, I've decided to slow down, and because I like memes and trolling a lot, that card is definitely just the thing for me. Your effects don't get to trigger on play. Do something else. And if that's 50% of your deck, great. I accidentally shut down your deck.
Right.
I think that card will. It's not gonna stay hidden just because.
It can't.
Right now it will just because there are no major tournaments.
And
happening.
people are still learning about it.
I think the thing with that makes that card even more interesting is that the Remedy pulls that card because your opponent just searched for a card, or you made them discard a
Yeah,
card.
that was obnoxious. At
Like-
first I thought, all right, it's not that big a deal. But then I'm on like
every
two.
time, and it's every time you search, you pitch. Once you grab a card, you pitch one. It's once per turn that she grabs the Sid. That's it. So literally, if your deck is just search.deck, you're not plussing. You're at best breaking even,
yeah.
and at worst, you're minusing your hand because you think you need your key pieces and you need to get them fast.
Yeah.
All right, so I have two sides on this, right? I have the side that Hobby Japan is pushing, and then I have what's being projected, right? Hobby Japan's really pushing for Windfire FFTA because we got the new Shara, we got the new Lednar, we got all like with those two cards alone, they're really trying to communicate, saying like, hey, play Ritz in her own element, please. We're really sick and tired of you searching for her with Lilty and Uke and all these other bullshit ways. Actually play her in her own element, you assholes. We're getting really sick and tired of it. But guess what? They're not going to, because here's the thing. Lednar only procs when you play him from hand.
Yep.
You only get his counter when you procs from hand.
Yep.
And the other thing, too, is that I think that... Well, actually, I'll get to that when I get to my other side here. So they really want Windfire FFTA to become a thing. They really... Like, they're cool, Sophie being a thing. I mean, they released her with...
Yeah.
with Sarah Mobius. I mean, it's very clear what they're communicating there, right?
Speed the damn game up. No, I was kidding.
Well, it was already fast. Like Opus 12 already shown that with Water Lightning.
Yeah.
And on top of Turbo X Death. And then the other thing that Hobby Japan's trying to push also is that Mono Water, because the Sarah backup came out, I think they finally buckled a little bit and gave us a really good water card.
Dude,
because
that backup,
she can search a prince, princess, or king.
I think it's so good that's also one of the cards in my deck, that it can search my Althea, so I don't need to play Narstalin, and it can search my Mute, meaning I save essentially a backup option to be able to search out 2 backups if I need them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they also kind of dipped their toe a little bit in Ice Fire FFTA, which was kind of toyed with a little bit in Opus 11, because you had Moot, you had the Black Mage, you had the other Ice Black Mage that let you like reveal a summon and cast it, and then it goes back to your hand. So people played around with it a little bit, but with having Remedi actually being able to be resurrected by Marsh, like that's kind of neat, especially since you're kind of given a soft control tool that Marsh can resurrect. I always like soft control tools because that way it's less on, like I played it and then it happened and then we just go to game 2. It's more of the it's the scale toad effect where it's like I'm gradually incentivizing you to play a particular way and then you get blown out because you're playing into it.
Yeah.
And so that's another one that I kind of see them kind of feeding into a little bit. They're still feeding into fire. I don't know what's going on in Hobby Japan's head, but ever since Opus 8, Opus 9, Opus 10, Opus 11, Opus 12, we've just gotten like literal lit fire cards. We get it.
It's kind of insane,
we dog shit on fire for 7 straight opuses. We get the picture. We're sorry, Hobby Japan. Please take us back.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are going to do it, but FFBE also has a chance to stand just because they
are pushing that because this was the FFBE set. Yep.
Yeah,
and they have a searcher for
this
it
was
in
the
Axstar,
FFBE set.
who also incentivizes you to play a bit more EX burst in your deck. So like you could potentially see, I don't think it's going to be a mainline thing, but you could potentially see like that deck that sneaks in here or there that's just EX burst Axstar FFBE. Yeah, and it just banks off because he can search any of them, and it banks off any of the more important ones to play.
Right.
Like the Emperor.
Or
Behemoth K. I would not put it past anybody to play Fire Lightning.
There was a Xanarkin Open deck that made it to like the middle of the line. It was a meta call Fire Lightning list where the idea was to get yourself to like damage 4.
Yep.
And then
I saw that.
intentionally push yourself into 5, and then you just pop.
Yeah.
You kill.
Have you seen? Is it Yuna Young Team?
Yes, I love YYT.
Okay.
I obsessively follow their content.
I was actually just watching it on the way.
Yeah, no, Steve D, if you ever watch this, Matt, shout outs to you, bro. I actually enjoy your content. You are amazing, and as the rest of your channel.
Knowledgeable,
yeah,
I really
I watched a few of their videos too.
A lot of the things that I harp on, and like a lot of my perspective does come from that side. And again, that's that EU side of it, right? Yep. The way that he describes it, like that does Germany's a little different when it comes to because he's more the UK side of it. Germany's a little bit more forward value centric, where they still want the break even, but they want the proactive break even, like Cyan and stuff like that. They like those kinds of Germany's obsessed with Marsh Ritz. That is one of the favorite things that's floating around there is Marsh Ritz because of how free it is. And when Ritz comes out, you gotta deal with it.
Yeah. But anyways, so I saw a deck list that he posted for Fire Lightning.
Wow.
And he was playing Axstar, and then he also
he was explaining the threshold of EX.
Yeah, but he also played the Fire Lightning 5 CP. Is it the
Behemoth K or
no the
Fire Aldor
Lightning.
Emperor?
Aldor and
he was playing that card. So he was just kind of talking about it. So I thought it was really interesting.
Oh yeah,
but I definitely think it's a deck.
So. Yeah, it has legs, and that's the other cool thing also is that all right. So now we're finally getting. So the 3 that I was talking on was. Hobby Japan wants to see mannequins. They want to see different styles of Marsh Ritz, and they also want to see FFB.
I got one more for you.
What's that?
Type 0.
Oh yeah, Type 0 got 9.
Cadets now, if I'm counting correctly, has ace, king.
Yep.
Not ace. King, 9, 8, both of them.
Yep.
Cater that essentially free play themselves.
Yes.
Which means if you ace and then you end up just happening to have the rest of that, your board just got big and massive as shit, and then you slap a 9 down and you go, haha, kill that thing, and the rest of your board just goes off.
Hey, Noah, you want to know what injects speed into my veins when it comes to me playing Type 0? I want you to be able to play an ace followed by a nail. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be able to...
Funniest fucking shit.
No, eject yourself with speed and get 4 forwards to your hand.
I am speed.
Yeah.
No, and then you're able to free cast 9 off of that ace after he's been deployed.
Yeah.
Like, it is insane.
I think because 9 has an
Just
ETB
put it
as
right
well,
into my vein.
like 9's ETB is what makes that card good, in my opinion. I mean, it's cool that you can free play him by just resting 2 dudes.
And you know what the
But
best
it's
part
the
is,
fact
no?
that when he comes into play, he minuses 2k something for each dude.
And you know what the best part is? If you read his text very closely, it says cast.
Mm-hmm.
No, it says cast. That is hilarious because that means that if you could somehow get lock to work with 9, I could totally see some janky combo deck that like free plays 9 after he returns to your hand 2 or 3 times, and after activating your forwards, you play lock for 2 CP without really putting any effort into it.
Isn't there already another like dude that untaps 3 category 0 backups?
So
For
Cater
free?
says on play restand 2 characters.
3. She restands
8
3
says
backups.
if you have 3 dudes in play him, or the original 8 says
Activate 3.
restand 3 class 0 cadets. Doesn't matter what they are.
Yep.
But the issue with that is that the only class 0 cadets that you play backup wise are Deuce and Rem.
Yep. Deuce, Rem, and Cater. Those are your 3 choices.
Yeah, so you either play that Cater or you play the forward Cater. So
So
it's
we-
one or the other.
yeah.
But usually you're restanding 2.
Yeah,
and you're
the
fine
thing
with
that's keeping Type 0's like hands behind their back is having not named Clash backups.
Yeah, that's true.
like-
honestly, like playing either one of the Caters is fine. It doesn't hurt you as much. Just because
We need an Azana backup. That's a Type 0 cadet. That'd be great. Even though I know what happens to him in the game is he dies super goddamn early.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my expectation side of it as 40 minutes. So right after I
we're ad breaking after this. You're
so
all good.
with so my side of it is that samurais are going to exist regardless, especially since the only 2 cards they've updated is Palom and Zand. That's it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the deck is the same. And the other builds that I was kind of thinking, I am thinking like a rogue tier water fire build. I think it'd be very strong right now.
Waterfire Knights.
And not even Waterfire Knights, because I think the problem with Waterfire Knights is I don't have good enough Knights to grab yet. Like, if I play Gawain, the best play that's been talked about is 2 Steiners.
You're playing Ovelia, so being able to give your Knights Brave and sit on a 3 CP Garland that
Garland's a trap.
pitch him to kill something. I don't think Garland's a trap, honestly. Like I played the deck as it is currently before all the new stuff comes out, and Garland's nice to have. The Brave boost, like you don't even need him for a special. That Brave boost saves your deck a lot of trouble because you're able to hold still and fight back if your opponent tries to do
All right,
it with you.
agree to disagree. So like a Waterfire counter build with like the basis on the 1-cost Kucheling the Impure, and then using like power reduction effects to lower forwards enough that your burn effects can kill them, and doing kind of like a fatigue style setup where you try to limit your searching as much as possible. But it's so hard for me because like I want to play Sarah in it, because Sarah is able to search for Princess Sarah, so that way you have like that guaranteed fire CP for 1. And the fact that Sarah exists, if you're playing water and you're not playing Princess Sarah for like your 2nd or 3rd element, then you really need to consider what other backups are like that much better as to why you're not doing it, because that alone saves so many multicolor decks. Because even if they blow up Sarah, you still have like your colored CP that you needed sitting right there.
Yeah.
So some kind of rogue tier fire water list. samurais. Sophie's gonna exist. It's it's a very clear fact of life. I really do expect some kind of Earth Lightning build to happen because with all the with the Lightning mannequin searching for the Earth mannequin, and with Clara searching Kings out, which there's a lot of King backups, especially in Lightning, especially Rampier. Like I do see like a spicy Earth Lightning build coming together where you're able to search your back row as efficiently as Nordstallen, but you have the recursion of Earth and you have the straight breakage of Lightning. And so that's what's kind of happening right now is that you have Sophie and then you have Samurais, and you have this kind of like third who's going to be the other one dancing in the ring. No one really knows yet.
Turbo Neo
has actually been bullied out of the format. A lot of Sophie lists are playing the 3 Fenrir, and it's really hard to like Turbo X Death when you puke out 2 Vikings.
Yep.
And then
Vikings.
Or even worse is that you do Sarah Mobius with Sophie, and then she gets a power boost from another source, and then you just get rid of your Sarah Mobius, and you just bring her back again with Fenrir. So you fight another thing. And that's also not assuming that Fenrir hasn't completely smoked Neo Exit outright.
Yeah. Interesting.
So and the other thing that bullies it out also is Samurais play the 4-cost Bahamut that 10Ks it. Alexander is being played in any deck that's playing Wind to just straight out him. Yeah. Fanfrit is actually returning with Sophie List, so you have an opener Fanfrit, he's gone. And it's funny when it takes an entire Opus cycle from something that people were concerned with is now being officially bullied out of the format.
No.
Now, am I saying that it can still cheek wins? Absolutely. Because if you don't, it's like YYT said, build the deck in proxy and play with your friends to raise awareness for it. Because the second that we stop raising awareness for it, it becomes a rogue tier deck. Because that's like the true meta thing, right? When people forget, you remind them.
Yeah.
And that's how you win a tournament.
Yep.
Ad time.
Hi, and welcome to the ads. This week we are brought to you by Cards Custom Builds. Are you into cosplay? Are you looking to get into cosplay? In the future, do you want to show up at your favorite event dressed up as your favorite character? Well, then Card Custom Builds is here to help. Cards Custom Builds creates everything from props and trinkets and weaponries all the way up to full costumes. I've seen some of the costumes that they made. They are all fantastic. They're really good stuff. If you would like to get some awesome things for your cosplay or just cool stuff to have around, if you want to throw a Halloween party at the end of the year and be like the talk of your Halloween party, please go check out Cards Custom Builds over at Facebook and tell them about TCG University. Say that we sent you and you'll get 5% off your entire order. Please do this. They do a bunch of things over there. Clay is making a lot of really cool stuff. He makes coasters too. If you want to go get coasters, I think he's selling them on Etsy and on Facebook. So please, if you want to get some cool stuff for your cosplay or for anything, go check out Cards Custom Builds and tell them that we sent you. This week, we are also brought to you by Dex Protections. Dex Protections is in a never-ending pursuit to create the highest quality storage and protection accessories. Their designs and innovation come from die-hard gamers and collectors just like you, so you know that what they make is stuff that you will want to buy, because they are also making stuff that they would want to buy. They are on a never-ending pursuit to create the best product, and that is why they are the leader in the industry in creating accessories for your deck products. Please, if you would like to go get some new stuff for when we're finally able to go out into public and go to tournaments and stuff, go to Deck Protections, and there will be a link down in the description down below for that. Please go check them out. We're also brought to you this week by Red Riot Games. They are a Canada-based online seller of things like Universes, MTG, and Pokemon. They're friends of the show. We like them a whole lot. Please, 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 please go to redriotgames.ca and check out all their singles there. And when you check out, use creator code TCGU to help support the show and help support them. It would be greatly appreciated. We like them a whole lot, and we would love it if you would use them to buy some singles for any upcoming tournaments that you might have towards the end of the year. Thank you. we'll get back to the show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We just finished our ad break.
Yeah,
It's time for the final topic.
boy.
Hope you all enjoyed that and our wonderful sponsors. I hope you all saw them.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yep,
You're wonderful.
you are the best. So now I believe we are going to be talking about L6 on the horizon.
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
Hey, Zeth.
Yes, sir.
What's L6?
So the way that so you finally got to this point in the video. I'm going to save you some time. If you want to close out from the video at this point, that's fine. L6 is merely two L3s taped together. Changed my mind.
Memes.
Yeah. So basically what he means by that is up until recently there was a very unpopular format called L3 that was just the three most recent sets or three most recent opuses in standard.
I do want to ask, I know we found it unpopular, but is it like a general thing
Well,
across the board?
what happened is COVID. Like,
Yeah.
like Hobby Japan will tell you that it's because of COVID, and there were a few L3 tournaments here and there, like abroad. The problem is L3 was intended to be like an in-person event kind of deal.
Yeah.
Because you could show up, get like the most recent 3 sets worth of cards. If you're like brand new starting out,
Yeah.
go buy the starter deck, go get a couple of packs, see if you get a legend you can put into the deck, and then you can play with everyone else right then and there. But then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And that's what made L3 incredibly hard to advertise, was because there was no one to advertise to, because we're all supposed to be staying inside.
Yeah.
So like that, and like my issue with that format, and I think it's going to be an issue with this format, like with L6 as well, being as it's literally just L3 except it's the most recent 6 opuses instead of 3, is there just wasn't enough to do. Like literally
That deck archetypes for L3 were very small.
Everything was basically figured out at that point.
like going through L3, it was like you have these monocolored decks and you have these like dual colored aggro decks that just go face, and you're just playing all the best cards from these 3 opuses, and there aren't very many of them.
I think they should just scrap L3 and just keep trying to support L6.
Like, yeah, so you mean like actively support L6?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
actively support. Because
So-
like, here my thing with L6 is, there's 3 more sets in L3, right? So then there's gonna be a little bit more creativity that you're able to have while playing that format. And I feel like that's still pretty good for a new person to go into, especially like as we keep getting a lot more sets.
Yeah.
And I hope this game goes on for a while.
Oh
right?
yeah, I hope it's like Duel Masters where it has like 45
Yeah,
opuses.
Exactly. That's the hope, right?
Mm.
So like, come down the line, like someone can just dip their toes in and play L6 and just kind of get a feel for it, and then eventually graduate and go to play standard format where they actually have an abundance of cards to learn from.
And that's the way I see it also, right? Is that like L3, as I've already mentioned on the podcast, is that like if you buy from the most recent 3 sets, you're pretty good to get started into standard. Like with how powerful these past sets have been, you'll do fine.
Yep.
Right? Like you could build most, if not all, of Samurais within the most recent 3 sets. You have to dip a little bit outside for like Irvine and like some other cards that are like from Opus 2, but he's like $1, if even that, right?
Yeah.
And like that was my issue with L3's. Also consider L3's timing when it came out, right? Like even like we'll even take COVID out of the picture, right? When L3 was first announced, it was Opus 9. Well, it was Opus 8. It was like the very tail end of Opus 8, Opus 9, Opus 10. That's when they announced L3.
That was still roughly around the height of Rampier taking control.
Yeah, which like that's when Rampier was first introduced, and that was like the solved Rampier list for L3.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah, I think the issue with that was because Rampier was just such a strong deck at the time. You
and
play
so was
Rampier,
WAF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You play those 2 or you don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
And if there was no solid removal pieces to deal with anything majorly big that your opponent slammed down.
There wasn't a Monoratsu. If a Monoratsu was an L3, I think it would have been healthy, honestly, because at least then there would be a level of interaction and counterplay.
Yeah.
And so the other thing also is that the issue with L3 that I had is that when they released it, there was so much 15 support that died because like someone had this really cool L3 deck that lasted a whole 2 weeks because when it was kind of like releasing into like Opus 10, the 2-drop Noctis you couldn't have the 4-drop Gladio that became a 2-drop with Noctis. You couldn't play Ignis anymore. You didn't have your Searcher. Like half of your deck's gone.
Yeah.
And it was out of like a singular rotation. And then they try to bring in, well, here's this 3-cost Noctis. Here's all these other really cool 15 cards like Iris and Luna Freya. No, I wanted to be able to play my 2-cost Noctis that replaced himself.
See, if they would have just released L6 initially,
Yeah, I wouldn't have complaints.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't.
Yeah. And I would have played that format probably a lot more, actually, than I did.
No.
Because, like, I played in that format literally, like, in one tournament. Or actually, it was 2 tournaments. I played Wind Water in one of them, and
Then you had your stripped down Rampier build, right?
Yep, and then I played Strip Down Rampier in the other, and it's like, this is not entertaining.
No.
Like, why am I playing this like Rampier list here when I can just be playing it in standard with even it being stripped down? I can play a lot more cool tech options than I can in this format where it's stripped down, but it's like actually stripped down. Like I literally just ripped the hinges off the doors and then like replaced them with some like rusty nails.
All right.
Some lollipop sticks.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for context, everything before Opus 8 will not be able to be played in L6.
Yeah.
So that means no Shantoto. That means
I'm fine with.
which means also very soon. It also means no Fina,
Yeah.
right? It means no Cloud of Darkness, the water Cloud of Darkness.
Yeah, the board wipe.
Yeah, the board white Cloud of Darkness. It also unfortunately means no 3-cost Famfrit. It also means that a lot of your Ifrits are gone also for Afrita engines.
Yeah.
So basically, it's Hobby Japan's way of saying all those legacy cards that some people have kind of griped about a little. Like Shanto does get griped about once in a while, where it's like, how can I build and commit like 5 forwards if all that's going to happen is they're going to hit Star Sybil and then I get swept?
all you see is Earth, and you're like,
Yeah.
it's Earth. They
Yeah.
probably have Shantoto.
Yeah. But even then, like the thing you have to consider is like, dude, are they actually playing it, or are they playing it based on the bluff that they're actually playing? Because that thought line right there, that's the 4th dimensional chess shit I like crave.
Yeah.
Is that I'll actively challenge, you don't have Shantoto until I see Star Sybil.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't think you have it.
Yeah.
No, straight up. I'm gonna call you out. You don't have a single Shantoto. You can bluff me all day if you want. You're only playing because you want a free play 6-drop. I know your style. You ain't slick.
Joke's on you, I got 2.
I'm playing 3.
Baby. Well, I mean, the Turbo X Death list was running 3 because they wanted to make sure that they didn't have to deal with enemy X Death.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was.
God.
And so, anyways, but the other major concern that I have for L6 is like, first of all, like we don't have a lot of wipes, like realistically speaking.
Yep.
And my other concern with L6 is that they're only really putting it out to test as to whether or not they move Xdeath over to the ban list, which I think that like my issue with putting out feelers to see if people like playing in a more insular format without a particular card and then deciding as to whether or not it's worth putting on the standard ban list, then I think's a problem.
Yeah, I think that's bad. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
But like,
Fuck you anyways.
I think that's just awful. Like, I don't want to say game design because it's not exactly game design. But
it is though.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like game design in the fact that they're like choosing to make an entirely separate format just to like decide whether this card's okay for a different format, which like that even of itself is a walking contradiction because it's like you're making this other format that's like completely insular. It has its own like life, own ban list, stuff like that.
It's like when MTG went to Historic and Pioneer.
Yeah.
Because people were complaining that standard's absolutely obnoxious.
Yeah.
So, I said this in our chat.
Yes.
And to me, when you said that, it didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Because how are you going to test a format? You said that you wanted they're kind of testing to see if they need to ban Xdeath in standard, right? I feel like just having it in standard is testing it enough.
Yeah.
You would think.
But playing a format without it, like I don't feel like that's actually testing if it needs to be banned or not.
Yeah. Because
that's what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, and that doesn't help anything. It doesn't fix anything. Because even if they do, let's say, ban it based off this like phantom format where it doesn't even exist, they're not learning why they needed to ban it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's that you're putting a hot patch over it and
you're
trying to like make it good PR that we're trying to do it for more inclusive new players, when actually the more nefarious motive is to test as to whether or not it's because this card needs to be removed from the game. Yeah.
Which, it's actually funny because there was like a video I watched a long while ago, I think, when around when Magic was starting to do the like pioneers, the historics, and it was like someone made the analogy of it's infected game design because let's say, ow, I got a paper cut. Let me slap a bandage on it. I'm not going to apply any Neosporin. I'm not going to fix the cut the way it needs to be fixed. Yeah. I'm just going to slap a Band-Aid on it. Yeah. Uh-oh, next 2 weeks. Oh, it's infected and my finger's purple now. Yeah. It's like, and I love that analogy because it makes so much sense because you aren't actually learning from like your mistake, which means you're just doomed to repeat it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is that like, what will happen is that when they release like a problematic card, it like from an appeasement standpoint from a player base, the first response is going to be, oh well, I play L6 anyways, it'll rotate out. Yep. And as I've learned from Magic the Gathering, as I've learned from any game that has a legacy style format, I can't play it in L6 anymore. Cool, I'm gonna take my playset, I'm gonna move over to this format, and I'm gonna put my playset in the other deck.
Yep.
Yippee-ki-yay. See, problem still not solved.
Yeah. So
I still have a broken card.
Yeah.
I like that it's banned in L6, right?
Well, yeah, no.
Everyone does because
people have already expressed, okay,
yeah,
good. Because straight up, there is no answers to it in L6.
Yeah. And L6 is the format for new.
Rotates immediately after.
And L6 is a format for new players.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Because they want them to dip their toes so they can actually get into standard. So like that's why I like that they banned it in that format. And like you said, everyone,
that part I can acknowledge.
Yeah,
that I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like if we're trying to like, if we're trying to make new players dip their toes into the water with L6, I think there are other things that will be needing to go too. Because like, if I'm being brutally honest, ETBs are a fundamental part of the game. Mm-hmm. So having a card exist like Sid in a format like L6.
Quit being salty.
I'm not. I'm actually being serious. It's not good for a new player.
No, it's not. Being able to tell them that their cards don't do anything and they should just shut up and not play the game the way it's supposed to be played is really bad.
Like I think that's part of the problem with Neo is it forces you into this like this underground game where you're just like, you're playing in the Shadow Realm, kid. It's time to sack all your things if you ever want to target my stuff.
When you play against Neo, one of the trains of thought is I will graft my hand as big as possible to slam as much shit down and see what happens. And if your opponent deals with any of it while you're doing that, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You just wasted all that time. You can't do it again. The game's over.
And the other thing, too, is that, so I definitely do see where you're going with, like, Sid, is that especially when it's like I'm trying to figure out like my front dudes do stuff.
Yeah.
The situation of then having to be like, okay, well that means I'm going to like learn to play back row, and like back row stuff does stuff, right? And then transfer over, and don't get me wrong, it's a healthy habit to then transfer over into standard if it was normal standard.
Yeah.
Right?
I just think that like it's not a good idea to like limit one floodgate in a format when you're trying to market it for new players, but not hit the other floodgates too when they can be just as bad.
No.
And like just as negatively impact the game.
Mm-hmm.
So to put it in perspective, kind of, it like reminds me of what's that card? Vanity's Emptiness in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh yeah, was that the one that prevents special summons?
Yes, and whenever a card was put into your graveyard, it sacked itself. So like it just became this like game. If you were a new player playing against that card, you could just like quit the game after. I'm gonna be honest. I heard of people like just playing the game, and it's like, well, they played Vanity's Emptiness. My deck didn't get to do the cool thing it wanted to do. I'm just gonna stop playing this game because there's no point. because that's like basically that defined the format was, hey, can you deal with this Vanity's Emptiness after I build my board and flip it on you the next turn?
And this is what leads me into like the more nefarious part of like TCGs and card design, right? Vanity's Emptiness was designed because when they saw that people were spamming specials and people were searching their decks from spamming their specials and they were plussing constantly, there had to, like, they thought in their minds that there had to be a card that had to be put out to reduce the problem. But what I'm doing is I'm introducing a problem to solve a problem. And that's what I'm starting to see with FF a little bit here, is that when Neo X Death was produced, like, it was, people talked about that it was a problem. Now, eventually the meta adapted. We found our counters. We played our outs. That's fine. I mean, that's healthy, right? The problem that I see that actually concerns me is that when I looked at L6, Samurai's cut like 2 or 3 cards. Right? And then you still have to deal with the same Samurai list. They're just missing a couple of burn backups and some interaction. That's basically it. Still have Mataratsu, you still have Tenzin, you still have Cyan. You know, it goes on and on and on and on. And that's where my concern with like, okay, well, we're going to have it to where we're going to make this card, but it's going to like rotate through L6 and like the player base will be appeased because L6 exists. And because L6 exists, we can release these obnoxiously oversized cards and then rake money from these people and continue the cycle, because L6 is going to be a vehicle for us to make these super obnoxious cards that are going to rotate out into Standard, with the players that are rotating out into Standard continue to play these cards.
But see, my biggest issue with that is like Standard still has to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
Sure, there might be answers and stuff, but it's just really obnoxious to have it there. And to have that, like, to start building decks with tech pieces that have to deal with that card, because you know it's going to come soon.
Well, it's like how everyone already talked, is that like, how likely am I going to run into a Turbo X Death player? If yes, I have to pack about 15 to 20% tech, because heaven forbid I don't open with it.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like, I hate that argument of like, the card's fine, just play like all this tech stuff, because there's like literally the only time that argument is valid is if your tech stuff is also searchable and or recoverable,
or it happens to be an okay card on its own.
Exactly. And like, because otherwise you're just filling your deck with chaff for a matchup you might not even run into.
Yeah, when I went,
especially when there's a game with no sideboards like this game. And like, if it's a game with sideboards, I'm a lot more okay with the argument of, just play tech cards, because at least you have games 2 and 3, you can sideboard stuff out, and you'll have a chance. This game, you get one shot, you fuck up, you're donezo.
Yeah, your deck has to be able to cover, it has to do what it does and cover as many bases broadly as possible.
Especially in like a 50-card deck too. Like, if it was 60 and you could pack more answers, I'd be down for that, but like, it's not, it's 50.
Nope. So, and like the other thing, like that's why I will say is one of the things that I do like about Final Fantasy, is that it is a best of one and it is in 30 minutes. And it really challenges how well can I read the room. When I go to a major event, how well can I anticipate that this is what I'm going to be actually like having to deal with? And if I'm able to build a deck that gives me the best likelihood on actually handling it, awesome. If I built my deck thinking everyone's going to play Turbo X Death and no one shows up at Turbo X Death, that's my own fault. Like, because I didn't read the room properly, and like that's how metas work. It is what it is.
You bring multiple decks if able to.
Oh, absolutely.
Then you scout the people.
Yeah.
Because people are going to be playing just casual games.
Yeah.
You scout
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think I look at like the FF tournaments and go to like all the chats and stuff like I do? Is because like people do, because there actually is one of the major judges for NA actually is coming down to Reunion, and I'm actually kind of excited. I think his name is like Lossley or something like that. I am super excited because him and I talk a lot about like rules interactions and stuff like that.
Oh, you're already for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know, and
so much for it.
Like I've had so much fun seeing how he.
Why are you not a judge yet?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, it's because I have my own personal reasons for that.
Fair enough.
We'll have a discussion about that.
Ha, suckers, you don't get to know.
We'll release the podcast later.
Hey.
Patreon exclusive content.
3 easy installments of $79.99.
Yep.
Within 3 minutes.
Bruh.
Within 3 minutes.
Yeah, I would, but that's generally why I wanted to bring like L6 to the table like this, is that my concern with it is that, like, remember when Extended was in MTG
Yeah, absolutely.
and how they completely axed it off because Modern became the more popular format?
Yeah, because
So-
people love Modern
Yeah.
with like everything and their entire being.
Basically, Byron, what happens is that in Magic the Gathering, Modern was a format that went back like 8 years worth of cards, whereas like Extended went like the past like 4 years, right? So a lot of what it came down to is like, why would I want to play in this format that only has 4 years worth of cards when there's a format that gives me 8 years worth of cards, and my card pool's a lot larger, and the metagame for it's a lot more diverse, and it's a lot less solved.
And that honestly just feels like L3 to L6.
Exactly.
It does.
It really
It actually
does.
Like, why would I want to play with 3 sets when I can play with 6?
But
Yeah.
why play with 6 sets when you can play with 13?
Because it gives options, and I really hope that they want to support L6 for like major tournaments separately. That
So have that be like the tournament circuit.
Yeah, so like not necessarily that. So like for me, like I don't play Magic,
Yeah,
but like
because I'd be able to swallow L6 then if like they actually have that as like the de facto format for tournament play. I think that would be fine.
I want them to have 2 separate ones. I want it to be standard, and I want it to be L6 because to me, like the way that I see Magic, and like I said, I haven't played it, but
Same here,
they
buddy.
have multiple formats that they actually like, do things for. They actually have separate tournaments for, right?
Yeah, they have their moderns,
and
they have their Grand Prix.
They have like a world championship for multiple, right? Multiple formats.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I want that to be kind of like a thing for Final Fantasy 2 because it just gives options to people, and then I think it also helps the game to stay alive a little bit longer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and if I had a nickel for every time someone said is FFTCG dying, or like implied that FFTCG is dying, I would probably have like about $3 at this point.
Yeah.
Because of how many times I've heard. Like the way I think's interesting is like because the question gets asked every set, and it's because again like in the grand scheme it's not one of the big 3. Yeah. That's why the question gets asked every set, because
That is for most card games that are in big 3.
Yeah. Well, because like even when Ego Raptor goes on like live stream to say, "Hey, I'm gonna open this booster box of Final Fantasy cards," and about 35% of the chat is like, "FF has a card game?"
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Any big popular IP more than likely has had or has a card game.
Yeah.
Or
Even
will.
Zatch Bell had a card game.
Yeah,
Fucking
but
terrible,
that's
it did.
but that
Oh, Zatch
but
Bell.
it falls. But the thing is, it falls to the 2-year curse. That's what happens. Is that there was a content creator like there was one of his videos I watched that he talks about the 2-year curse. I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast where a TCG comes out and it only lasts 2 years.
Transformers.
Yeah, because either it doesn't receive the support from the fan base, or the developer, like you mentioned with Transformers, straight doesn't support it.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I kind of like to try to follow with card games. Like, there's a lot of card games that I want to play, but I don't want to put my money. I don't want to invest in a card game
And then
unless
it dies.
unless it lasts more than 2 years.
Like Chrono
to me,
Clash. It just replaced it with Digimon.
Yeah.
It was literally Digimon the trial run.
God.
So,
No,
like-
it's a skinwalker. It just kind of picked up the skin and put it over itself.
God, there were so many issues like later, but yeah. Continue.
So like,
Good.
if it lasts more than 2 years, I feel comfortable investing into a card game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
2 years in
hey
a
man,
day.
invest in an Exceed. We
Go.
got enough people, we can make Exceed a card game that people actually start playing. I love that game. Travis hates it though.
No.
Which one?
Listen.
No.
There's more broken
one?
characters than Dan
Exceed.
Hibiki. It's okay.
Oh, it's the
Dan
fighting game.
Hibiki, man. It's fine. No, so let me explain this. Just a bit quick. So Exceed is like
Post-show
UFS
time.
Light, but way easier to deal with.
Let's leave this for post show.
Okay, fine. That way he could shake his head more.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for watching. We all really appreciate it here at TCGU. We hope you go check out all of our other content as well, not just here, unless you just love us, which, I'm fine with that. I always love hearing people talk about us in a positive light because it makes me feel real nice.
Except this guy.
Very
Existence is
nice.
Very nice. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, evening, wherever you may be. Sayonara.
Bye, homies.
See ya.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.